Hi. So we decided to vibe code a product from scratch. So I had to come up with a use case of a product that was not just a static website, but also a feature-rich platform which had like decent level of complexity, right? I did come up with a product which was basically for a meal prep kitchen, which was delivering meals to health-conscious customers. So the product is basically a meal planning and delivery platform for these meal delivery kitchen, or rather the meal prep kitchen, right? So where they can actually manage their entire meal catalog from the admin portal of the system, and also they can configure all of these nutrition specific information from these ingredients to the macros to the pricing, and basically manage the entire meal component. Right. So yeah, beyond that, we also did a client-facing application for the end customers, where they could come in, browse through the meal catalog, add items to the cart, and also there's this specific feature where you can change the nutrition goals and get a recommendation of which particular meal portion or meal portion size is recommended for your nutritional goal. So post order placement, the orders get logged on the admin interface, where the admins can keep track of the entire order management component, basically, right, with filters for days and weeks. So they can also manage the order statuses. So they can mark orders as dispatched, and that would basically move the orders to dispatched and to be delivered statuses, so they can get a comparison of what they've delivered and what they've not. So that's the general gist of what the application is. And on top of that, I had to come up with a use story document to hand over to the developers who were doing the vibe coding, right? So I decided to actually use DeepSeek to generate the user stories for this particular product, right? So the idea was basically to get the basic outline of the user stories from DeepSeek, and then work on top of that to go with the specifics of the platform. So yeah, so to begin with, I just gave a general prompt to set the context. I told the tool that I need to generate a use story document for a product that will be completely vibe coded. So the idea was to basically get any insights that the tool provides me on what kind of details have to be mentioned in such a user story document, which will be completely vibe coded, right? So basically I wanted to get a gist of is it the traditional detail use stories that we need to do, or is it sufficient to have like a high-level use story documentation for this particular context? So yeah, so the inputs I got was basically to go with a more flexible structure with the use stories and not with like rigid specifications. So I made sure that there weren't any hard rules specified apart from the key functionalities. So that was the whole idea. So I got the base structure provided by the tool, basically come up with like a few points. I had like around 10 to 12 pointers on like what the system should do, right? So these were all on a very high level. I didn't go into details, apart from like specific rules that I had to mention regarding restrictions of the total order value, the number of meal selections per day and stuff like that, which had to be specified, were specified. But other than that, it was all high-level one-line, two-line descriptions of features, right? I just want to get a gist of how detailed can the tool go with the user stories with such a high-level description, feature description, right? Yeah, so I gave these pointers, and then instantly the use stories were generated for most of the points that I provided, but then it wasn't sufficient. The use stories weren't detailed enough. It was on a super high level. The details were lacking. And also the use stories weren't properly split as per the invest criteria. So I had to, give more prompts in order for the use stories to be more refined. So the prompt that I gave was that the user stories are on a very high level. I want the user stories to be more detailed. I explicitly mentioned it to follow the invest criteria so that the user stories are split in such a way that it can be easily implemented. Right after that prompt, I got a much better result, although it wasn't the most ideal way of splitting, but yeah, it did a decent job for me to get a basic outline of the use story structure. So based on that information, I decided to go for another iteration to ensure that the use stories are further detailed and split much better. So I just gave it a try by reiterating that the stories must be split further. The acceptance criteria requires more details, and I also mentioned that cover the edge cases as well, because initially the stories were on a much high level, right? And yeah, so those were taken into account in this iteration, and then I received like specific detailed acceptance criteria points. So once I was satisfied with whatever the stories that were given to me, I then went on to get the product itself, the tool itself, to generate a product overview, so that can be also put into the document for who is going through to get a much better understanding before reading through the use stories, right? So the product overview was also generated completely, and it quite a good job with coming up with the product overview. So yeah, as the next step, once I was satisfied with all the information that was there, I actually moved the content to Google Docs, copy pasted the overview and then the use stories, and all I had to do was make some minor tweaks with regards to the terminologies mainly, and then yeah, I also had to make some specific tweaks on the acceptance criteria where I felt like details were lacking. So those were the kind of inputs that I had to do like from my end. So in total, I broke down the entire spec into 5 epics with a total of 20-25 use stories. So that is basically the entire spec. After finalizing the spec from my end, I basically handed off the use stories to the developers to see how they take it on from there and how they vibe code the entire product with just this specification.
So how I approached this whole thing was to basically start with feeding the PDF, okay, basically the user stories, to Lovable. That's what I use. Lovable is the one code generator I use. So and it crashed at that point. So at that point, what I did was I fed it to ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT to create an overview of the whole use case. So what it said was basically say that, okay, I'm building a web app called NutriWeek. So that's the name I gave. And then use Next.js for that and Tailwind CSS for styling and Supabase as the backend. I would know, like for an example, like for a non-technical person wouldn't know actually what Next.js and Tailwind CSS and Supabase will be. But I guess like my technical expertise came here and I asked to like specifically ask them to use this tech stack to build this program. Then what I did was basically create an overview of all the features of the NutriWeek use case, and then gave me a prompt that I can copy paste to Lovable. It started like that, and then it had basically thought, okay, now I have to, like, it knew that I have to build a delivery application, delivery manager website. So it started from that and then build, but the first build actually failed. There was a button. So that's the best thing of that I saw in Lovable was that basically the build was unsuccessful, but still I clicked on that button and then it gave me, okay, it found out the error and then fixed it by itself as well. And then basically it was like, what I did was after that, I got all these epics, like different epics from the user stories, and I started building one by one. So I told them the first one was basically create an admin authentication. I prompted that. The same thing, I took it from ChatGPT as well. So I told them, okay, get the first epic and then create a prompt that could copy paste into something like Lovable. And then it gave me all these epics with summarized overviews for them as well, but including all the features. Start from there and then started doing all these things, creating the first one was the authentication, started creating that. But the thing was here, so I actually didn't tell it to like link it to a database, but so it created everything in the code, hard-coded everything like the user emails and passwords and everything in the code itself. So anyone that has access to the code can access it and see it. Then after that, again, so I asked you to create the integration with Supabase. So basically Supabase integration was nothing much. Like so the thing I would find like lacking in a non-technical person would be the tech stack, that they wouldn't know what to actually use for this. But Lovable also have a Superbase integration icon also here as well. It was smooth sailing, and like I could easily go through that, and they would give me all the instructions that I have to look at and all those things. So it was easy. But the thing, something that they said they did was to basically, so I asked them to create an admin user with an email and a username, and they created that user on the Superbase side. But what they did was basically they created another policy and another function to basically say that, okay, if anyone with this email comes in, and then that person should be, there must be an admin. So that basically said, okay, there can't be any admins more than this, because like now we have a function that also makes that creates an admin, but with a specific email. So this is something Lovable did, and it also gave me all the SQL queries. So any non-techie person wouldn't know what these are, but to review these things. After that, it was mostly again like going through all these epics and finding out like them giving all those SQLs to seed data, and me just clicking on a button just to seed those data and run the migrations that are needed here. And also they created all the most of the tables. That it was a very positive thing that I saw, was that like they knew the interactions between the tables, the connections and relationships between them, and then they seeded some example data to them as well. But they created some policies here that are needed, usually like needed by Superbase, but that gave an error in later time when I was doing some prompts. So basically, after creating all these meals and seeding all these meals, I tried to see them and leave them in the meal plans tab without logging in, and then it gave an error. So at that point, I knew it was giving an error, and it was not showing any of the meals in the menu, because it had some policies like that Lovable ran by itself, so that they created, but it was not aware of those policies when the bug was happening. So at that point, like I knew as a techie person, but I feel like a non-techie person wouldn't know actually what to do that. So what I did was, so to emulate that thing, basically I said, okay, these meal plans are not working and the menu is not coming in, so there's an error here. Then they tried to multiple times, they tried to change these meals, and then they tried to do several changes in the code base to see, okay, what could be the issue, what could be the reason that menu is not showing. So what I did was basically I went through the admin login, and I could see the menu on the admin side, but not on when I'm logged out. So I knew these policies were the issue, but I couldn't exactly tell them like these policies are causing an error. So what I did was basically I told them, okay, when I'm logged in, I can see the mails, and when I'm logged out, I can see anything. So at that point, it knew, like Lovable knew, like, okay, this could be the reason, and it fixed it as well. That was a good thing. But the thing was, like, the same error, same issue came later as well with a different table, and it didn't know, like, it learned from its mistake. So as a software developer, what I would do is basically, if I came across an error, I would know, like, okay, next time something similar to that happens, I would know basically, okay, maybe it's the same error in a different format, but Lovable didn't learn from its mistake, so it gave up the same error, and I had to do the same thing, tell the same thing. Okay, as an admin, I can see these orders. That was a different table, and as a normal user, I can see my orders. So there were like so many I love that they learn like certain things, they did certain things. So and like even with the data seedings, like seeded data, they did it perfectly. I didn't have to seed in data, there's just example menu, so they were fine with that. And after a while, like there are few problems I saw on the code, and code side there were like few things that I saw that were not like very scalable, and were security flaws that was flagged through Superbase that said, okay, these could be security flaws in these things. And also these unique IDs, they were like not unique as well. They were like same. They were reusing the same IDs here and there. All those things went through all the epics and built. Finally, like it gave me like most of the UI stuff. They did it like perfectly, most like the first try. And then all I had to do was like change certain things, and then after that, after a while, it got to this point. This is the final product. I think like most of this UI stuff, it got inspiration from the screenshots that I gave as well, and then it created how it works and created an about us page as well with AI generated images, and even the meal plans for the meals. They create some AI generated things as well that are sometimes not related to the actual title. So it works, and I have, like in the use cases, there are certain conditions that we have to meet when we are placing an order, and those conditions are here as well. So you can basically select an order, like select meals from a menu and for a single date, and you can proceed to checkout. And you can type in your name, and for an example, can give an email, and then give some telephone number. The validations work here. So if it's a 10-digit number, so it has to be a 10-digit number for it to be a valid phone number. So you can't continue to delivery without putting a valid phone number, and then you can put some delivery address as well. And here in the payments, it doesn't actually, I didn't actually tell them like, so what I told them was to create a payment screen. I didn't exactly tell them, okay, use Stripe or anything. But so it gave us some inputs for payments, but this doesn't actually, like it's not a real payment screen, so it doesn't actually work. And you can place the order, and you can, it gives you the order summary as well. So all this UI, it created by itself. And you can go to home, and there's a separate admin login. So you can see there's a sign-in, and also there's an admin login, separate admin logins as well. Usually we will like use the same sign-in or a separate admin login that is not shown in the hero section of the page, but they place the admin login button here, and I can log in as an admin, and it shows all the orders and pending orders and menu items as well. So I can right now see the orders that I have placed, and this is one I placed right now, and view the order items. And then I can also, as an admin, I can like mark it as dispatched. So it created all these UIs and created all these flows as well just by Epic. So that's really good. And then manage menu. So you can see all these mails that we have in the system, and you can add new ones, and then you can edit the current ones as well. That's because like they created these things out of like a small Epic that really good, like how far they have come. But the thing is, so what I understood was basically it's very good at like the getting the epics translated into natural languages, translated into all these user stories and building them. Like the code, if you deep dive into the code base, there are a few errors and few vulnerabilities that you can see that are not scalable, that are some kind of security flaw that someone like I will have to explicitly tell them, okay, these things has to change. So yeah, basically that's my interpretation of the NutriWeek user story in Lava.
All right, so I decided to implement the solution with V0, and I took the liberty to set a system prompt before I get started, because that's a possibility on V0 on Vessel. So the initial system prompt I set was pretty much use Next.js exclusively, and use Supabase for authentication and persistence. Wherever there's a login or whatever, just use Supabase. And also use ShardCN, I think, which vZero already does off the bat. I prefer ShardCN. So ShardCN with Radix components behind the scenes. And instead of giving a screenshot or any design inspiration, this guy will stick to just a clean design language. So it's just a verbal prompt. And just as another guiding point, to create a checklist, and then while executing longer prompts, so I'm about to just feed the entire requirement use case into the model. So since that's quite a lengthy prompt, I'm advising the platform to pretty much create a checklist from the user stories, and then take them off one by one as it's tackling each requirement. So this is what that looks like. So I'm pretty much just copy pasting the entire prompt into vZero, and it did quite a good job at creating the checklist and going through each one and marking it off one by one as it completed it. I did this twice actually. So the first time it did pretty well, but I wanted to see how it would how replicatable the actual result is. So I did it a couple of times, and about 3 out of 4 times it actually worked out. So your mileage may vary, but in this case it did quite good. And as for the actual prompt, so it took that in and decided to pretty much go ahead, and whenever it got stuck, all I had to do was just, say continue with the rest of the items in the list, and it worked out quite well. But I ran into some issues very quickly, mostly to do with the Supabase integration. So it had trouble with certain policies on Supabase. So whenever it would run into them, maybe it's trying to access a file or resource that it doesn't have access to, it would just throw up a vessel error, and then all I have to do is just press the button and it would try and take care of it. But most of the time what it ends up doing is giving broader permissions than necessary. So that was something quite tricky to navigate, especially if security and privacies of the data that you're actually storing is of any concern. So in this case, even for user data like addresses and phone numbers, it just pretty much took away like row-level security from all those records. So that was quite problematic that I had to navigate later. But initially, the other issues it ran into was during image uploads and the bucket storage access that vZero provides. But it did take quite a lot of time to actually fine-tune and refine the UI, and this is what we ended up with. Most of the gripes when it comes to working with vZero came in the forms of modifications and requesting incremental and partial changes to what it has put out already. So when it's working fully autonomously, it does well enough. But once you start asking for small and incremental minor changes, it tends to hallucinate and change other files. So Vessel actually gives you like a feature to actually lock the files that you don't want changed, because it tends to do that quite often actually. And even for static generated content like this file is pretty much hard-coded off some data. It tends to declare client components, so it's not the greatest when it comes to SEO, but it still does a decent job at generating the markup, as well as keeping it responsive and clean. And another issue I ran into while actually developing the UI is I don't think the model has any awareness of colors and contrast when it comes to overlaying text. So it would always tend to put like lighter colors on text on lighter background. So visibility was a problem. That is where it comes back into the other issue where when you try to make a change, it tends to make unnecessary changes. So even if I wanted a quick CSS change, it would tend to change a lot of the markup as well as the JavaScript, which did cause follow-up issues. But again, it could have maybe been avoided with a more cleaner or more concise prompt, or by locking the actual files on vZero. Besides that, it did a decent job at putting together the app. So I'll quickly navigate this as I share my follow-up thoughts. So this is pretty much the landing page that we ended up with. And as you can see, there is an admin login as well as a is a menu option. So pretty much all of these buttons kind of navigate to the same section. And based on the requirements, so it broke down orders into 5 days of the week. It could have actually put in Saturday and Sunday here as well, but it stuck to Monday through Friday. And yeah, so based on the required fitness goal, it will recommend certain dishes. So I think that was quite a nice touch that it decided on taking that approach. Instead of filtering out the actual food, it decided to just recommend something. And yeah, here we go. So it has a bunch of foods, and you can pretty much add those to your shopping cart and go through the checkout process. Now, there's not really too much validation except for the explicitly defined validation where we requested that it only allows purchases of a minimum $100. So as you can see, as soon as it goes below $100, it throws an error. And the other problem that you saw there was it doesn't have any awareness of too much of an awareness of runtime errors. So what you just saw was V0 actually giving the same index or the same key for the React element tree instead of giving what you would normally do from like a data source. So it's just giving an index. So as soon as you remove one of the same type, it tends to lose multiple records, some records that are not even necessary. So there are runtime errors that it doesn't have an awareness of. So if you were trying to sort this out, as a non-technical person, you'd probably end up saying something like, oh, it's removing more than required. But of course, like if you had an in-depth understanding of how React handles items in a list, you could probably figure out what exactly is going wrong. So you could actually just tell it to fix that instead of having V0 try and figure it out itself. And yeah, so most of the gripes here in terms of the development process had to do with integration. So in this case, the Supabase integration was quite tricky to navigate just through the chat window. And as for the code that got generated, it tends to do things like this where generally what you'd want here is something like an error thrown when something fails. But in this case, it just goes ahead and passes in empty strings when you're trying to initialize your Supabase client. So as for the code quality, it does a decent job at keeping things structured well, according to the Next.js standards. But you could probably break down these components more rather than keeping them all in one file. So I think that could most likely be navigated better with a more concise and directed prompt. Because if you end up having real engineers working on this after getting 80% of the way done, there would be a lot more work here to actually navigate if you don't structure those initial prompts properly to actually get a reusable code base rather than just one big chunk. So there's that as well. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for the concerns that I had working with V0. So there's a lot more we could break down into, but that's pretty much it. Okay, so to continue with this little experiment, so we start V0 and Lovable and all these other platforms are pretty great when it comes to starting off with an idea and starting off with an initial prompt, but we wanted to take our crack at starting off with an existing code base as well. So we pretty much took the code from V0 and then chucked that into OpenAI's Codex. So Codex is a platform agnostic coding agent, and it can take on different tasks and execute those tasks independently on like an online environment, and then pretty much even open a GitHub PR for you. So we wanted to implement a final and the kind of a last user feature for the platform. So for NutriWeek, that would be user accounts for individual users, not just for admins. So that's pretty much what we tried to implement. So as you can see that I've already done some touch-ups and improvements to the UI itself on NutriWeek, so it does look slightly better. There are more consistent fonts, more consistent font sizes, so it was able to go through the entire code base, learn it, and make those minute adjustments. So that was pretty nice. And on top of that, the final feature would be pretty much this, which is to implement a user login for individual profiles. So it took an interesting approach when it comes to implementing that, which I'm sure we'll discuss down the video. But as for now, it pretty much went ahead and got that done for us. There was a bit of changes, and it did give me some SQL queries to run on the database. It didn't really do that for me, but it did the best it could, given that it doesn't have access to the actual database. This container is an isolated environment after it spins up. So, yeah, but it did the code change, and it did open a PR, so I could run that locally and verify the actual result. But as for the feature, it did a decent job. I say decent because initially it did mess it up and then pretty much break the admin login that was built on v0. But with a few follow-up prompts, it was able to sort that out and iron out the kinks. So yeah, it did do a good job. As you can see, the difference is that it's pretty much similar to a GitHub pull request, and you can actually view the pull request on GitHub with this button as well. So it did a good enough job with that, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
In my approach, I want to see the experience of a non-technical user, so I try to keep the prompts to a simple, without giving it specific instructions, technical instructions. And first what I did was I copied the use case document and pasted it to Replit, and from there it generated this UI. Once I gave the prompt, it started generating instantaneously, and it generated this whole page by itself. It also generated this about page which was not in the use case document, and all the images and everything, it gave it by itself. And there was a place where I ran into an error, so I screenshotted the error and uploaded it here, so it started fixing it as well. And there were multiple errors, so I did the same process. And also in Replit, there's this ability to select elements and then put fix this button, and so it was able to do that as well. And after about 1.5 hours, I was able to generate this whole UI without the functionality. This is what Replit made for the menu page. So you can see this is a tab view. So Replit generates the applications in a responsive manner. This is what it generated for the desktop view. It's also mobile responsive as well. So this is for the iPhone XR screen. Yeah, so let's take a look how the flow goes. So let's add to cart for Tuesday. Yeah, this is a checkout page it generated. For the functionality, I had to give specific instructions, and I added this demo fill button, so I don't need to type in the information here. And yes, so the order was placed successfully. Let's log in. So this login has two accounts. One is for the normal user and the other is for the admin login. So yeah, let's log in as a normal person. Here you can see the order history. This is the profile page, so you can change the profile, and the settings is here as well. So let's log out and log in as an admin user. Yeah, this is the admin dashboard it generated. So all of these components are generated by Replit, and these are dummy data here. So none of them are connected to the database. And yes, so we can see the order management. We can dispatch orders from here. Yeah, so let's take a look at the code inside. So one thing I noticed is when I was giving the prompt, I told it to use Next.js as a recommendation, and it did not do that. And it has created a React application. It's using Radix UI and Tailwind as well. So yeah, that was one point where it did not do what I wanted it to do. And it has also generated this SQL database for the meals and everything. This is the Replit application I made. So I made another application using Lovable. So kind of the same process. I want to see how Lovable works as well. So in Lovable, when I was giving the use cases, I try to copy and paste the whole document, but Laravel crashed at that point. It was not able to process the information. So what I did was I went to ChatGPT and I created a general overview of the project, and then I copied and pasted it, and after that I gave specific prompts for each use case. So by doing so, I was able to generate this UI. One thing about Laravel is that it was actually very fast comparing it with Replit. I was able to generate the whole UI within like an hour, and just like Replit, all of these images and the content was generated by Laravel itself. Like it has generated this how it works page. Like some of these pages are not in the use case document as well, and both Laravel and Replit was able to fix their own problems. And for this, even I used to upload images and upload a screenshot and tell the problem is here and can you fix it. It was able to do that. Yeah, I'll just show the ordering part as well. Yeah, one thing about these AI vibe coding tools is that you can once you are used to working with AI tools, you can actually figure out that this UI was made by AI, and most of these AI UIs are it's kind of like AI generated images that a trained eye can figure out this was created by AI. Yeah, so I'll just add these and show how the cart works. Yes. Yeah, so the order was placed successfully. Let's go to the admin page, and yeah, for this as well I have a demo customer and admin account. So let's log in as a normal customer. Yeah, this is his profile page, and this is the order history. And let's log in as an admin. So as admin you can dispatch these. You can see the meal catalog, edit, delete, everything. One thing about working with Laravel and Replit both is that Laravel seemed to be more intelligent in the way it was able to give more functionality to the code with minimal prompts. But since I'm giving it simple instructions, with the database, Laravel was storing its data to the local storage. That's one thing I noticed. With Replit, it was creating its own SQL database. So even with simple prompts, I was able to create this application. I'm not saying it's a enterprise ready application, but for a simple demo or to create an MVP, we can use these tools. Yeah, that's about it.